May my words be your word, O God, creator, redeemer, sustainer. Jesus was asked which commandment in the law is the greatest. He said to them, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And then he said, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Ponder that for a moment. On Friday and yesterday, for probably, if you were on the entire time, about 15 hours of Zoom, Mary Fairbrook, Lisa Ozida, and I attended a diocesan convention. Okay, I'll start over. The camera died. On Friday and yesterday, Mary Fairbrook and Lisa Ozida and I attended diocesan convention. This was a convention unlike any other in my memory, probably ever, and probably nobody had any idea what it was going to be like. It was, as I said, entirely on Zoom and a variety of other platforms so we could vote and see presentations and read documents. I had 2 screens set up in my office upstairs so that I could flip back and forth to keep up with the speakers and the documents and the resolutions and the voting process we were all dealing with. But for all of its glitches, it actually turned out okay. What I did realize last night was that my brain was on absolutely total overload. I needed to turn my computer and all my screens off, and I am sure that Mary and Lisa felt the same. However, I give deep thanks for both of them for their presence yesterday, along with about 450 or so other folks throughout the diocese. Beyond the business part of the gathering at the beginning and the concluding Eucharist, where 2 people were ordained to the diaconate, which was very, very cool, especially with Greg and his PPE equipment as he laid hands on those 2 people and ordained them to a life of service in the church. We focused on addressing the issue of racism. There have been groups over the years in this diocese that have come together to address issues like this, and the most recent one is called Circles of Color. It was formed in response to the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all others, and the Black Lives Matter movement that began this summer. The group presented 6 resolutions that came before the diocese, all having something to do with confronting systemic racism. A friend told me that the committee hoped that if we could pass 2 of those 6 resolutions, they would consider that to be a real success and a very good step. I think they were also concerned that bringing up stuff like this could be contentious, that there might be a lot of back and forth between factions or sides that believed one thing versus another. There was little of that. And in fact, even though the resolutions committee suggested that we not approve, were all approved, practically unanimously. In a sense, it was this sweeping mandate for this diocese to address racial understanding, reconciliation, and partnership. The final resolution called for us to sign an anti-racism covenant that was put out by the Diocese of Missouri, I believe. And we were asked to sign on to something like this, or to those words. But beyond that, we were asked to study it, pray with it, and live into it. As I was looking through the covenant, I said to myself, this is just another piece of paper. And unless we are willing to follow our part of owning the covenant, it is useless and it won't change a thing. I thought about how I might bring this back today and read it all to you, and how we might seriously look at it so that it wasn't just a piece of paper. About that time, my good friend and colleague Joe Beecher spoke to the convention saying, I ask that you do not pass this resolution. Now, Joe has been in ethnic ministries for most of her life. And she was the vicar at La Iglesia de Resurrección in Mount Vernon for many years before she retired. For her to say that was pretty shocking to a lot of us who know her. And then she said, if you are not going to do the things that are in this document, then you shouldn't vote for it. It passed by a huge margin. I mean, a huge margin. And that means to me that we have agreed to a covenant or a promise that is nearly as valid as the one we make at our baptisms. This is not an easy thing to do. And there isn't a person who doesn't know that. Someone said at the end of all of this that what we had done was stuck a big toe into Puget Sound when we thought maybe we'd full-bodied jumped into the Pacific Ocean. We have a long way to go. But it is a start if we are willing to begin where we are and work towards something good or right. The resolution itself is a challenging thing, particularly though for those of us who have grown in an all-white world or almost all-white world and have received the benefits and blessings of all of that entails. This deserves our prayers and our commitment, both personally and in the life of the church. The resolution actually is too long to read this morning, although Lisa said to me at one point, there's your sermon. So I will send it out to everyone. It includes a first piece called Lament that recognizes all those places and things that we have done where we as individuals, and especially the church, has participated in actions that have denied people the dignity they deserve as human beings. It recognizes that we have not followed Jesus by loving our neighbor as ourselves. And it recognizes how far short we have come in our baptismal promise to respect the dignity of every human being. Then we covenant, we promise with the words in our gospel this morning that as a people of faith, we are called to love our God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our mind, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. Following that are 18 bullet points that we voted for, 18 things we promised to do. They are broad and deep and call us to do things that many of us don't really want to do. I fear that what we voted for just paid lip service to a need within us to do the right thing without having to do the work necessary to become the right thing. Are we really willing to acknowledge and renounce our racist legacies? Are we really willing to invest in local businesses that are owned and operated by people of color? Are we really willing to listen to and validate the painful stories that we need to hear in order to learn and in order to change? Are we really willing to stand up and speak out against everyday micro and macro acts of oppression and aggression? Those are probably 4 or 5 of those 18 things. And the list goes on and on. And my guess is out of the 400 and some people that were there, that covenant was read by about 25 or 30 people. We want to do these things. Are we willing to do them? I believe all of us here want to do those things, but I also believe all of us here have little idea of what it will take to do them, to live into them, and to recognize our neighbor as beloved of God and beloved of ourselves. I believe that St. Clair's is one of the most openly welcoming churches that I have ever been in. And I am not in any way attempting to call us out or to shame us. But Mary and Lisa and I voted for this resolution on behalf of all of us. And for us not to come back to you and to say we are going to try to do these things would be a sham. And it would say to the convention and to you all that what we did yesterday and Friday didn't really matter. So I'm going to invite us all to stick a big toe in the Snoqualmie River, the river of the people of the Snoqualmie, the river of the people of the Duwamish, the river of the people of the coastal Salish, who lived on this land for centuries before we showed up, to recognize them. If you would like to come together to do this work, and I hope some of you will, to study this document and to find the ways that we as a congregation can listen and learn and implement these changes, even some of them, some of these promises, please let me know. Email me, text me, phone me. I'm happy to talk about it. I've thought about taking one or two of them each Sunday and preaching or teaching on them. But it can't always be me doing the teaching. I don't have the stories that need to be told. I don't have the resources to affect the change. I don't have the wisdom to hear my own complicity. But together we do. And we have the ability and the invitation to challenge bigotry wherever we see it or hear it. And we have the ability to act responsibly and pray for an end to the divisiveness that has blown us all apart, not only in this country, but in this world, and especially in this church that we all love. And we have the resources to sing new songs that we have seldom, if ever, sung, worship in new ways that enrich us and bring us a deeper understanding of who God is in the world, and bring us much more closely to a just society and a church that truly, truly, truly does welcome the stranger and love its neighbor as we love ourselves. I invite you into this process with us. I hope that that will be the case. That today is my prayer. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can live into God's promises. And like Moses, who may have not seen his way into that promised land, he did get to see it. And he did get to know what was coming. And his people were allowed in. And that is my prayer, that at some point, someday, we will all be allowed in. In Jesus' holy name, I pray. Amen.